The olive trees whisper in the wind like old women mourning what cannot be changed. Beneath their gnarled shadows, you kneel not in prayer, but in silence, because even your voice belongs to someone else. Your sandals grind against the dirt path as you carry the weight of water jugs, the weight of duty, the weight of a name not even yours to speak aloud in the streets. Somewhere in the courtyard, a boy reads poetry. You are not allowed to learn the words he chants. You are 16. You are married. You are already a mother, or soon to be, and your name will be forgotten before your son's is ever spoken. If this story stirs something buried deep within you, tell me what kind of strength lives in silence, and could you have endured a life without a voice? Subscribe if you feel the weight of her footsteps. The sky above Athens is the color of burnt honey, soft and gold, the light slanting long across rooftops washed in white dust. Somewhere a rooster cries, and in the quiet wake of morning, another cry answers. Raw, sudden, human. Yours, Dot, you were born beneath a ceiling of clay beams and olive smoke, not into celebration, but into stillness. The midwife holds you up too. The light, a girl. There is no feast, no lyre-struck ode. Only your mother's tired eyes and the whisper of the old nurse, who already knows how this story will unfold. She does not swaddle you in the cloth of victory. She binds you in linen, stiff with reuse, not to keep you warm, but to keep you quiet. If this story touches a place you rarely speak from, subscribe or share it with someone who listens in the dark. And tell me, what name would you give to a girl the world forgets before she speaks? You grow in a house made not of rooms, but of boundaries. The world outside is sunlit marble and men's laughter echoing through courtyards. The world inside is shadow, hushed footsteps on clay tile, and the low rhythm of women at the loom. You learn to walk behind the lattice, not just behind wooden slats carved into the upper floor windows, but behind the invisible walls drawn between what a girl sees and what she may touch. You press your fingers to those thin wooden bars, peering down as boys throw javelins in the yard, as men argue politics over wine too strong for your lips. Their voices rise like birds. Yours is never heard. Your name is not shouted across streets, or carved into stone. It is said only at dusk, in the kitchens, in your mother's tired command. Help with the bread. Gather the olives. Mind your brother's cloak. You are not the center of the house, though it turns upon your hands. Each morning, you grind grain beside your sister, your arms taut with the repetition of circles. Your muscles bloom in silence. There is no audience, no praise, only the thud of stone, the dust in your throat, and the sound of your mother's feet passing by, soft, hurried, like she's late to something she's never invited to. Once, you ask a question aloud. Something simple. What is the market like? Your voice startles even you. Your mother hushes you with a glance so sharp it feels like cold water. She does not answer. You learn, then, that curiosity in a girl is dangerous. Like flame near oil, the only time you see the world beyond is through stories whispered at night. When the work is done and your mother lets her voice slip loose for a moment, she tells you of the agora, of vendors shouting, of philosophers spinning riddles, of statues so tall they cast their own sunsets. She describes smells, garlic and charcoal, wet stone and warm bread, smells you will never know for yourself. These stories are not gifts, but fences. They remind you of how wide the world is, and how small your path within it. Your brother grows, and with him, so does the light allowed to him. At 12, he is taken to hear speeches in the Knicks. At 13, he is taught to wrestle in the gymnasium. At 14, he walks out the door with coins in his pouch and freedom in his gait. You, meanwhile, are told to pull your himation tighter and stay indoors. The sun, they say, is not made for girls. There is a lattice over your window, yes, but the real bars are older, stronger, inherited. They are the look your father gives you when you ask why you cannot learn letters. They are the way your brother laughs when you say you want to know what justice means. They are the silence that follows your mother's stories, as if the very act of remembering a freer world might break her. One afternoon, you sit near the threshold as a visitor arrives, a man with sand-blown sandals and salt crusting his tunic. Your father welcomes him. He enters without looking at you. You remain in the corner, unseen, though you are the one who brought the water, the figs, the cloth. This is your place, to exist around the edges of other people's lives. The years pass like threads, through a shuttle, measured, monotonous, taut. You begin to bleed, and with it comes a new kind of stillness, a watchful stillness. You are a woman now, they say, as if that word has always been waiting to catch you like a snare. Now, the midwife watches you with different eyes. She checks your ankles, your hips, your teeth, not with care, but with calculation. You have become something else, not a child, not a girl, a promise, a future exchange, a vessel for sons not yet born, but still you sit by the lattice. Still you watch the dust rise in the yard. Still you wait for something to come, though no one tells you what. Behind you, in the dim room, your mother hums while spinning thread. Her fingers are worn thin. Her eyes are red-rimmed from smoke. You wonder if she once asked the same questions you now hold in your throat. You wonder if she once dreamed of the market's smells, or the philosopher's stones, or the warmth of the sun on bare skin. You want to ask, but you do not. The silence feels too old now, too sacred, too heavy. Instead, you return to your work. You braid your sister's hair. You hush the baby with a lullaby your grandmother once sang. You knead dough until your palms are sore, and you press your cheek to the lattice, feeling the sun's warmth through the gaps, not enough to burn, but just enough to know it's there. And so begins your life behind the lattice, a life shaped by shadows, a life measured not in days, but in the absence of days, a life that will not be carved into stone, but that endures. Like breath in a sealed room, the morning begins not with light, but with hands, the calloused grip of your nursemaid lifting the linen from your frame, her breath still heavy from sleep, her movements precise and without affection. You are roused not with words, but with the soft tug of the braid she weaves down your back. She does not ask if you dreamed. Dreams are indulgences for men with leisure, not for girls with dust between their toes. The stone floor greets your feet like a warning, cold, cracked, and always waiting. You are 10, perhaps 11, old enough to have outgrown laughter, young enough to remember its shape. Already, the rules are tightening around you, like invisible laces, cinching, binding, pressing. Your body, once a thing of play, is now a canvas for judgment. Your spine must stay straight, even when weary. Your walk must not stir dust or curiosity. Your limbs must learn the choreography of submission. Hands folded, gaze downturned, steps soft enough not to disturb a fly. When you sit, it must be with knees pressed modestly together, as though virtue begins at the seam of your thighs. The nursemaid clicks her tongue when your shoulder slumps. She presses 2 fingers against the base of your neck and pushes until you rise taller. A woman's posture is her honor, she mutters. You nod. You always nod. The day stretches before you, like thread on a loom, repetitive, taut, unyielding. You knead dough while standing on a wooden block so your hands can reach the basin. The flour stings the fresh cracks on your knuckles. Behind you, your mother teaches your younger sister how to spin flax without tangling it. Her voice is low, not out of secrecy, but because she has forgotten how to speak loudly. Food is measured not only in portion, but in purpose. You are not to eat too much. It makes a girl round, and roundness is not in fashion unless you are carrying a man's. Child, you chew with care, with silence. You drink only when permitted. Appetite, like voice, must be cultivated in restraint. You ask once if you may taste the honey reserved for guests. Your mother shakes her head with the kind of sadness that does not belong to the honey. That sweetness is not for us, she says. Later, when no one is watching, you dip your finger into the amphora and press it to your tongue. The taste is overwhelming, golden, cloying, alive. You want to laugh, to shout that the gods must have made this for you too, but you do not. You wipe your hand on your skirt and pretend nothing ever passed your lips. Your body begins to shift in ways that unnerve even you. Small buds beneath your chest, a widening in your hips. Hair where there was none. You wrap yourself in your peplus more tightly, suddenly aware of the eyes that linger too long. Even the gaze of the old man who delivers clay to your fathers. Shop feels heavier now. It settles on your shoulder like ash, and you cannot brush it away. There are rules for your flesh that no one speaks aloud. You learn them anyway. Do not run, it jiggles things that must remain still. Do not laugh with your mouth open. It suggests looseness. Do not sweat, it reveals too much effort, and effort is unbecoming. Do not speak when men are near. Your voice is a possession, and should only be unwrapped in private. Your mother calls you to help dress for a cousin's wedding. She instructs you on the kohl for your eyes, the oil for your arms. Not too much, she warns, or they'll think you're asking. Asking for what? She doesn't say. She doesn't need. 2. That night, as you watch the older girls dance around the fire, their robes clinging to new curves, you feel something sour stir in your belly. Not jealousy, not fear, a strange sort of mourning, though you do not yet have the word for it. A mourning for the freedom. You didn't know you were losing until it was already gone. You return home to find a bloodstain on your tunic, a small bloom, rust dark and silent. You scrub it with lye and salt until your knuckles go raw. You do not tell your mother. You know what this means. You know that girlhood, whatever threadbare scraps of it you held, has begun its slow unraveling. In the days that follow, your mother watches you more closely. She teaches you how to wrap the cloth beneath your garments to catch the blood, how to sit with your legs slightly askew, how to lower your voice when speaking to elders. She says, you must be careful now. Men will look, you want to ask why. It is your burden to shrink instead of theirs to look away. But instead, you say nothing. You nod again, always nodding. Even the air feels different. It notices you more. The breeze catches your hair like fingers. The olive trees seem to whisper, louder as you pass. You feel as though you've stepped into a new skin overnight, one made not of flesh, but of expectations. You stand before the clay mirror, your own reflection fragmented by its uneven surface. You do not recognize the girl staring back. She is composed, controlled, her jaw clenched tight enough to keep the questions from slipping out. She will not run anymore. She will not ask for honey. She will walk with her head down and her shoulders back. She will become what they need her to become, even if it costs her everything she was. And somewhere deep inside, a voice faint and nearly forgotten asks, if I am no longer mine, whose am I? The morning your father stops calling you child is the morning something inside you wilts. He does not look at you with anger or shame or even affection, but with a cold sort of distance, as though you've become unfamiliar, like a piece of furniture that no longer fits the room it's in. You are no longer the daughter who climbed fig trees or fetched his sandals with a smile. You have become something else. You catch him one day speaking in hushed tones with an older man from another deme, a merchant with salt-grey curls and an expensive belt. You do not hear your name, but you see your dowry chest open behind them. The wooden lid yawns like a mouth full of coins and folded linens, promises stacked on cedar-scented dreams. You understand, then, you are being measured, not for your kindness or cleverness, but for the weight of what you carry into another man's home. Your father no longer meets your eyes. Your mother speaks less. Her silence is no longer gentle, but tense, a silence wound tight, like the final twist in a rope before it snaps. She busies herself, folding your garments into neat piles. She sharpens the weaving needles, the kitchen knives, the ritual combs. She tells you to oil your hair more often, to watch your step, to smile when spoken to. She never says why. She doesn't need to. Suitors begin to arrive like slow, solemn storms. They come not for you, but for what you represent. They sit in your father's andron, sipping diluted wine, their eyes scanning the columns and slaves and goats, but never quite, resting on your face. You are glimpsed, not seen. Each one is older than the last, their beards heavy with ash and ambition. One limps, another has a voice like a broken shell. They nod as your father speaks of your obedience, your modesty, your quiet. He does not speak of your dreams, because you are not meant to have any. You learn to listen from doorways, half hidden behind fig branches or the creak of the loom. You catch fragments of your worth. A fine stitcher, good hips for childbearing, never raises her voice. These are your accolades. These are your offerings. One day, as the orange sun sinks behind Mount Hymettus, your father returns from the agora, with an amphora of wine and a decision. He does not look pleased. He does not look sorrowful. He simply says, "You'll be wed at the new moon." No name, no explanation, no choice. You feel the words settle into your chest like pebbles in a... Well, you do not cry. Crying would make it real. Your mother begins preparing the wedding garments, crimson-dyed wool with gold thread, stitched with patterns of fertility and fortune. She works through the night, her eyes rimmed with exhaustion, her lips never moving. You sit beside her, weaving silence into every thread. The days blur after that. Offerings are made to Hera and Artemis. Olive branches are tied to the doorframe. You are bathed in scented water, your hair combed until your scalp aches. Each ritual feels like a preparation for burial, not celebration. On the night before the wedding, your mother brings you to the hearth. She holds your face in both hands, her skin dry and warm, her eyes wet but stubbornly unblinking. "Your life is not ending," she whispers, "but it will not be yours again for a long time." You want to ask what her own wedding was like. You want to ask if she loved your father, if she ever felt more than this cage of duty. But the words die in your mouth. Instead, she presses a coin into your palm. "For the house spirits," she says. But you know she means for luck, for survival, for all the words we'll never speak again. In the courtyard, boys laugh and light torches. You hear the clinking of amphorae, the flutes beginning their plaintive melody. You are not invited to the laughter, not yet. Perhaps never. The morning arrives, heavy with smoke and roses. You were dressed in layers of ceremonial cloth, your face veiled, your lips painted with the juice of crushed berries. The nursemaids sing, but the tune feels more like a dirge than a wedding hymn. Your father approaches. He does not offer you his hand, he offers you his silence, and you take it. He leads you out of the only home you've ever known, and into the waiting arms of a stranger. No one asks what you feel. No one asks what you want, because in this world, a girl's desires are as invisible as breath on a cold morning, fleeting, fading, and never written in stone. And so, you go, not because you choose to, but because choice was never yours. To carry you walk away, your feet leaving no mark on the earth behind you, but something within you begins to whisper. The night is thick with the scent of myrrh and crushed petals. A procession moves through the narrow streets, torches held high, their flames dancing like restless spirits against the darkened stone. You are at its center, not a bride, not yet a wife, but an offering wrapped in crimson and silence. The air clings to your skin, hot with ceremony, tight with expectation. Your veil is long, heavy, embroidered with symbols you do not fully understand. Sheaves of grain, coiled snakes, stars arranged in patterns of ancient meaning. Beneath it, your breath comes shallow, the linen pressing against your lips like a hush. You walk slowly, each step a farewell, from mother to stranger. From girl to ghost, women sing around you. Their voices rise in minor tones, not joyful, not mournful, but something in between. A lament disguised as celebration. You cannot tell if the songs are for you, or for the part of you being left behind closed shutters. Figures watch. A glimpse of a neighbor's eyes, wide and unblinking. A girl your age, biting her lip. An old woman muttering a prayer. You are both spectacle and warning. This is what becomes of daughters. This is the path carved in repetition, worn smooth by the feet of generations. Your father walks ahead, silent, torch in hand. His robe sways with each step. He does not look back. He has completed his duty. He has handed you over to the altar of alliance. His name will remain, stitched into lineage. Yours, like your veil, will be cast aside. The groom's house is larger than your father's, but colder. The stone is clean, the courtyard swept, the slaves efficient and without expression. You step over the threshold, and a priestess murmurs words to Hestia, the goddess of hearth and flame. You touch the fire as instructed, the heat surprising against your fingers. For a moment, you want to leave your hand there, to let the pain cut through the numbness, but you withdraw. Always, you withdraw. The groom stands beneath the olive tree. You saw him once, from a distance. He was laughing then, surrounded by friends and wine. Now, he is quiet, solemn. You know his name. You know his father's wealth. You know his age, twice yours. But you do not know the sound of his heartbeat. You do not know if he will speak to you kindly or command you like the steward commands the livestock. He does not smile, he nods. That is all. You are led to the bridal chamber, a room to clean, to still. There are no voices here. Only oil lamps flickering in their clay shells, shadows gathering in the corners. The bed is covered in woven wool dyed with saffron. You wonder how many hands stitched that cloth. How many brides lay beneath it and whispered their fear into its folds? You sit on the edge of the bed, your hands folded tightly in your lap. The veil is removed. Your face is bare now, and it feels strange, exposed. The nursemaid leaves without a word, and the door shuts with a soft finality. He enters. You do not look at him. You do not know how. Your breath is slow, deliberate. You try to steady the pounding in your chest. You think of your mother's hands, of the songs she hummed while weaving, of the stories she never finished. You try to become something smaller, something easier to carry. He speaks your name once, just once. It sounds foreign in his mouth. He touches your shoulder. His fingers are not cruel, but they are not gentle either. They are simply there, claiming, searching. You close your eyes. There is no ceremony for this. No blessing, no guidance, only silence and pressure and the ache of a future you did not choose. The room smells of oil and dust, and something older, something bitter, like forgotten dreams. After he leaves, he says nothing. The door closes again. You lie still. The wool itches your back. The oil lamp crackles. Somewhere in the house, a dog barks once and is silenced. You do not cry. In the morning, the nursemaid returns. She checks the sheets. She nods. There is blood. That is all they need to know. That you have been taken, and that the world may now accept your transformation. The women of the house come with gifts, bread, dried fruit, perfume. They do not look you in the eyes. They murmur blessings, make jokes about sons, and leave. You are now Goin wife, woman. You are now part of a household that is not yours. You are now a vessel through which another name may continue. The rooms are large, the ceilings high, but you feel smaller than ever. You unpack your dowry, the combs, the cloaks, the bronze mirror with its hairline crack. You arrange them carefully, creating an illusion of belonging. But they are relics from a former life. They do not speak. To this place, you walk the halls, learning the corners and the echoes. You find the kitchen, the loom, the storeroom. You do not find yourself. At night, you sleep in the same bed, on the same cloth, under the same gaze. Your husband does not speak often. He does not hurt you. But kindness is more than the absence of cruelty. You begin to count the days, though. You don't know what you're waiting for. Perhaps for the moment, when this house stops feeling like a stranger's skin. Perhaps for the moment when your own body no longer feels like a burden wrapped in red. Perhaps for nothing at all, and still, the world spins. The olives ripen. The wind changes. And somewhere, far beyond the city walls, a girl not yet chosen watches a bridal procession pass and wonders when her turn will come. It begins as a quiet ache, low and steady, blooming like a shadow beneath your ribs. You wake with your hand resting on the slight rise of your belly, still unsure whether to call it a miracle or a warning. The sun has not yet pierced the shutters, but you already know. Something inside you is changing, something that cannot be reversed. You are 16. You have been married for 2 moons. You know the smell of your husband's skin, the sound of his sandals across the threshold, the way he clears his throat before entering the room. He does not speak of tenderness, nor cruelty, just duty. Your name sits on his tongue only when necessary. He prefers you silent, adorned, fertile. The older women begin to watch you differently. They measure your movements with narrowed eyes, whispering to one another in corners. One morning, a midwife appears, unannounced, her hands dry and stained with the oils of many births. She presses your abdomen with practiced fingers, nods once, and leaves without speaking. You are confirmed. You are carrying life. The household begins its slow, strange preparation. Cloth is washed. Garlands are woven. Prayers are murmured to Artemis and Eileithyia, protectors of laboring women. Your husband informs his brother with a flick of his wrist and a half smile. Your name is not mentioned. You are fed more, given broth sweetened with dates. No wine. You are told to rest more, though rest does not come easily. Your sleep is crowded with images of mothers screaming into cloth, of babies with twisted limbs, of darkness so thick it pulses. You do not speak of these dreams. They would only tell you to pray harder. Time becomes a strange thing. Your body swells, shifts, breasts tender, ankles heavy. Some days you feel like a goddess carved from soft marble, others like an animal, too heavy to rise from the earth. Your mother visits once. She brings salted figs and a comb made of bone. She does not embrace you. She does not speak of your childhood. She only says, "Let them wrap your belly in wool at night. It helps with the turning." You nod. You always nod. The day arrives on a gust of east wind, the kind that stirs the olive trees into hushed frenzy. Your water breaks before dawn, soaking the rush mat beneath your sleeping body. You call out once, not his name, just a sound, raw and small. The house stirs. The midwife returns. This time, she does not leave. They lead you to the birthing stool, a rough wooden seat with a wide crescent cut from the middle. Beneath it, clay vessels are set to catch whatever emerges. You are stripped of your garments. Modesty is no longer relevant. You are no longer a woman. You are a gate. The chamber is warm with breath and lamp oil. Women gather, the midwife, her apprentice, an aunt you do not know well. Your mother is not there. Your husband is not there. No men are permitted to witness the chaos of creation. You are alone, though surrounded. The pain is not a scream, but a river. It rises, swells, crashes through you in waves. You grip the handles of the stool until your knuckles bloom white. The midwife chants old prayers. Her hands are firm on your knees. Do not cry out, she says. The gods are listening. You try to be brave. You try to be silent. But silence frays under the weight of agony. You sob, you bleed, you push. The hours drag like stones pulled uphill. You hear someone whisper that the child is turned. Someone else curses the moon. They give you herbs between contractions, bitter and hot. Your head spins. Your body betrays you. And then, with a final tearing, a cry not yours, a sound sharp and real and bright. The baby is born. You collapse backward onto the mat, barely conscious. The women surround the newborn. You hear them exhale, relief or disappointment. You cannot tell. You force your eyes open. A boy. There is rejoicing in the courtyard. The slaves sing. The nursemaid runs to tell your husband. The child is wiped, swaddled, placed at your breast. You look down and see a stranger, tiny, red, fragile, yours and not yours. You do not know how to feel. Relief, perhaps, or terror. The midwife whispers, "He has your nose." But all you feel is emptiness, because if it had been a girl, there would have been silence. No singing, no rush of feet, perhaps not even a swaddling cloth. Perhaps she would have been left outside the city gates, as others were, left for the crows or the cold. This world does not weep for girl children. It does not remember them. And so you hold your son, and somewhere deep inside, A voice curls in your throat and asks, not aloud, what would I have done if the child had been like me? You rise before the sun, just as the shadows begin to thin along the eastern wall. The house still sleeps, wrapped in breath-warmed silence. Only the coals in the hearth remember the fire from the night before, glowing faintly beneath the ash. You coax them back to life with a handful of straw, your hands moving by memory now, not thought. This has become your rhythm, your role, your world. The child cries in the other room. Not loud, not desperate, just enough to summon you. You wrap him in a length of linen and cradle him against your chest as you prepare the morning meal: soaked barley, warmed goat's milk, stale bread, softened with oil. The slaves stir, take instructions. The household begins its slow mechanical awakening. You are the mistress of it all. The steward addresses you with bowed head. The nursemaid watches your expression before moving. The bread is baked because you say when. The wool is dyed because you say what shade. But there is no glory in this mastery, only endless repetition. Grind, knead, boil, bleed, weave, nurse, command, repeat. You wear your authority like a veil, visible but never celebrated. Your name is never spoken in the symposium, never praised in the agora. You are not honored with marble or verse. Your work leaves no monument, only meals that vanish by dusk and linens that soil again by dawn. The loom is your kingdom. It's wooden. Frame stands tall in the women's quarters, warped from use, stained by generations of calloused hands. Each thread you pass through its frame is a sentence in a silent language. You weave more than cloth. You weave order, identity, survival, today. You work a border of meanders, the endless pattern of turning paths. It is said to symbolize eternity. You smile bitterly. Eternity, perhaps, but not freedom. Your husband returns from the assembly in the early afternoon. His robe is creased, his voice hoarse from debate. He does not ask what you've done. He does not thank you for the house he walks through, clean and fed and calm. He nods once and sits. He drinks diluted wine and stares into the courtyard as if the sky holds something better than the life within his walls. You bring him olives. He does not meet your eyes. He speaks to the steward over your shoulder. You are seen but not acknowledged. Like a statue, carved beautifully, placed in reverence, but never consulted. Visitors arrive. Male voices echo in the andron. You retreat to your corner of the world. That is the rule. That is the wall. You stay where the smoke curls low, where the children run, where the water jugs rest. You once asked your mother why women were not permitted in the symposium. She said, because they are afraid of our thoughts. And then she laughed. A bitter, knowing sound. When the guests leave, the wine amphorae are emptied, and the floors stained with drops of pomegranate and argument. You wipe the floor with salt water and silence. Your fingers sting. Your back aches. No one notices. Your son is nearly walking now. His steps are unsteady, but he moves with the pride of the unbroken. You watch him cross the threshold of the women's quarters and step into the light of the central hall, just for a moment. You call him back quickly. The andron is no place for a toddler, yet soon it will be his. You feel a strange twisting in your chest, hope and sorrow intertwined like ivy at night. When all are sleeping, you sit alone by the dying hearth. You unpin your hair. You press your hands to your thighs and stare into the flame. You think of the women you once glimpsed in the streets, foreign wives, slaves with scars, widows who spoke too loudly. You wonder what freedom feels like, not the kind written in law, but the kind that lives in the breath, in the stride, in the spine. You do not dare to wish for it. Wishes are dangerous. They loosen the threads you have spent years binding. But you do wonder, and in the wondering, you find something like breath. You are mistress of the hearth, but the hearth is a cage made of warmth. Its stones are smooth from centuries of obedience. You are not ungrateful. You are not rebellious. You are not lost, but you are tired. And in the middle of the night, while the world dreams of conquest and praise, you dream of walking barefoot into the agora of speaking, your name aloud beneath the open sky, and hearing it echo back as if it mattered. It begins with a dull pain, low and persistent, the kind that hums beneath your skin like an old tune played too often. You wake before dawn, forehead damp, lips dry. The child is asleep, mouth open, chest rising and falling like a tide. You do not call for help. Not yet. Pain is not a stranger. To you, it is as familiar as weaving and kneading, as the sound of your name never spoken in the symposium. But this pain is different. It does not pass. It thickens with each breath, tightening around your spine, blooming in your belly like an unkind flower. By midday, you cannot sit at the loom. You crouch in the kitchen, hand pressed against the stone wall, your jaw clenched. As the world swims, the slaves avoid your gaze. The house grows still. They summon the midwife. She arrives in the early evening, a short woman with smoke-grey hair and fingers stained with rue and vinegar. She smells of crushed herbs, old sweat, and secrets. She does not smile. She has seen too many women to waste time with pleasantries. Her eyes sweep over you in a single breath. She nods. You are led to the birthing chamber, not to give birth, but to be examined. The room is hot, windowless. The walls sweat with the memory of all the labors it has seen. You lie on a thin mat, knees drawn, pulse fluttering like a trapped bird. The midwife places her cool hands on your abdomen. She presses, pauses, presses again. Her face does not change. She speaks in half phrases. The blood is blocked. She mutters. The womb is restless. She asks what you've eaten. How often, if your husband has been cruel. You shake your head. You always shake your head. She calls for a basin. Her apprentice, a girl of 12, prepares the mixture: honey, thyme, ground bark, something darker you don't recognize. The smell is sharp, bitter. You are told to drink. It burns your throat. It curls your stomach. You gag once, then again. She watches you with the calm of someone who knows that pain is a language women must learn or perish. The pain shifts, sharper. Now she applies warm cloths to your belly. She chants something to Artemis, to the spirit of the blood, to your silent womb. You do not ask what she means. You only nod. Night falls. The lamps are lit. The room feels closer, heavier. You drift in and out of waking. In your haze, you hear the midwife whisper to the apprentice, "She's lucky it came now. Another week, and it could have poisoned her blood." You are lucky. That word lands like a stone. When the fever breaks, she brews you a tisane of mint and goat's milk. She tells you not to eat figs for a month. She wraps your abdomen with a woolen band. She places a poultice of crushed garlic on the soles of your feet. These are not cures. They are offerings, gestures to an unseen balance. Before she leaves, she hands you a small pouch, dried herbs and bark. For the next time, she says, there is always a next time. She does not ask if you are scared, because fear is woven into the shape of being a woman. When she is gone, you lie beneath the thin cloth and stare at the ceiling. The pain has dulled, but it lingers, like something watching from just beyond the room. You think of your body, this vessel carved by duty, used by others, named by men, blamed by gods. They say the womb wanders when neglected, that it floats through the body like a ghost, causing madness, seizures, grief, that a woman is only whole when filled with life. You think of how the philosophers discuss the soul, the mind, the city, but never the womb, never the pain, never the silent breaking of a woman in the birthing chair. You think of all the things you've never been taught about yourself, and for the first time in many years, you feel something more dangerous than pain. You feel anger, not rage, not fire, but a slow-burning coal. You close your eyes, and in the darkness behind them, you see not your husband, nor your child, nor your father's house. You see the midwife, ancient calm, sharp as a blade. You see her hands, her silence, her power, and you wonder if the gods will ever fear. A woman who knows her own blood. The temple stands high above the city, its white columns burning in the afternoon light. You have come barefoot, as tradition demands, with your himatayan draped low over your brow. In your hands, an offering, dried figs, a sprig of myrtle, and a small jar of oil you've been saving for moons. The road to the altar is hot beneath your feet, the stones worn smooth by 1,000 such walks. But your steps are silent. Always silent, you bow low before the statue of Athena, tall, unmoving, carved from stone the color of clouded milk. Her spear is forever raised. Her shield gleams with sculpted serpents. Her eyes do not blink. You place your offering at her feet and whisper a prayer that feels more like a question. She is a goddess, they say, a protector of cities, a giver of wisdom, born fully formed from the skull of her father. You wonder what it is to be born from a head, not a womb, to be delivered from thought, not pain, to be shaped by male divinity, not female suffering. You kneel, but she does not answer. All around you, men speak the names of gods like family. They toast to Dionysus when drunk. They shout to Ares in battle. They whisper to Hermes before trade. The gods walk among them in story and song, thunderous, wrathful, merciful, but always men, always ruling, demanding, taking. Even the goddesses, Hera, Demeter, Artemis exists through male gaze. The loyal wife, the grieving mother, the untouched huntress, symbols, not sisters, allegories, not ancestors. You were taught from girlhood that the divine lives in obedience, that Artemis hears the prayers of the chaste, that Demeter answers only the sorrowful cries of mothers, that Aphrodite listens only when you are beautiful. You light incense, you sing the hymns, but you wonder if they ever hear you, if they ever heard your mother in the sanctuary. The priests conduct the rituals. They wear robes dyed in deep crimson, embroidered with sacred text. Their voices fill the space, echoing beneath the vaulted ceilings. You are not allowed beyond the inner chamber. Your body is considered impure, unstable, too much of the earth and not enough of the sky. You remember when you bled through your peplus once during a festival. The stain was small, dark like spilled wine. You hid in the shadows until the flow stopped. When you told the priestess, she said nothing, just handed you water and sent you home. Unclean, undesirable, dismissed. Your prayers must travel farther than a man's. They must rise through the air. through law, through myth, through centuries of silence. You wonder if the gods ever tire of being spoken to by voices that have never been listened to in their own homes. In the marketplace, men debate the divine as if it were currency. They argue over sacrifice, ritual, and fate. You walk past them, head lowered, mouth closed. No one asks your opinion on the will of Olympus. No one thinks you might feel it more deeply than they do. One night, your husband returns late, flushed with wine. He boasts that he bested his rivals in an argument over divine justice. You listen, you nod, you refill his cup, but inside you remember the face of the midwife, her whispered prayers over your aching belly, the way she spat 3 times toward Hades' realm when the pain lessened. That felt like faith, not the chants in marble halls, not the hymns sung by the elite, but the soft curses muttered during birth, the olive leaves tied in silence to a dying girl's wrist, the whisper of a grandmother's voice as she lit the hearth on a moonless night. There are no temples for those moments, no statues, but you believe in them, more than you ever believed in bronze gods with THUNDERBOLTS. You begin to keep a shrine of your own, small, hidden, a smooth stone, a carved figure shaped by your own hand, faceless, round, strong. You place it beneath the bed, beside a folded cloth soaked with oil and thyme. You speak to it at night, not loudly, just enough. You do not ask for power. You do not ask for sons. You ask to be seen. You ask for your voice to matter. And one night, as the fire crackles low, you feel something stir in the room. Not a god, perhaps, but something older, something quieter. Maybe the gods are not all men. Maybe some are women like you, tired, watching, waiting. Maybe the divine has always lived in hands that heal, in wombs that ache, in songs sung under breath, not in statues, but in silence. He speaks, and the room listens. That is all it takes. A low command, a shift in his tone, and the atmosphere bends to his will. Your husband stands at the center of the courtyard, robe draped just so, hands behind his back like a man with nothing to fear. You sit nearby, silent, shelling fava beans into a shallow clay bowl, pretending not to hear what's being decided. He is discussing property, or inheritance, or whether a neighbor's wall crosses the legal boundary of the shared alley. You're not certain. The words blur, sharp and metallic, but meaningless to ears that have never been invited to speak. You know better than to interrupt. The law in Athens is not written in your voice. It is carved in stone by men who would not recognize your name if it passed their lips. You cannot own property. You cannot vote. You cannot stand trial as an equal. You are not nothing, not exactly, but you are not full, not whole. You are attached to someone, father, husband, son. Your existence is always in relation to another, never simply yours. You remember when your neighbor's daughter, Callista, left the house without escort to chase after her brother. It was only for a moment, a slip, a flash of ankle, the sound of her name shouted in the street. She was 12. The whispers started that same day. Within the week, her father had promised her to a widower with 2 grown sons. She was married before the figs had ripened. The law, they said, was for her protection. You wonder what kind of protection it is that builds walls instead of doors once. You spoke too loudly in the andron, a single word, correcting the name of a poet your husband had misquoted. His friends laughed. Your husband did not. That night he said nothing. But the next morning, your loom had been moved to the back room. The windows there are small and let in very little sun. You learned your place again. The laws permit him to take another woman, should he choose, a concubine, a servant girl, a companion for public banquets, for wit and conversation, things he would never seek from you. If he tires of you entirely, he may dismiss you with a nod and a statement before witnesses. You would return to your father's home, older, used, a burden once more. Should you seek separation, you would need a man to speak on your behalf. Your own words would not be enough. Even in mourning, the law binds your mouth. If your husband dies, you cannot inherit what he leaves. The estate passes to his closest male kin. You may remain in the house, if they allow it, or you may be sent away, replaced, forgotten, erased, and yet they say you are the foundation of the household. They say your virtue is the city's pride. They say your silence is sacred. In the marketplace, men debate these laws with wine-stained lips and fingers stained with ink. They compare statutes as though discussing harvests or rainfall. They do not know what it is to live beneath those laws, to wake each morning with the weight of them pressing on your chest like a second body. Your husband once said, "The law is what separates us from animals." You think of the midwife kneeling over your fevered body, ignoring the rules to save your life. You think of the silent bargain your mother made, sacrificing the second-born daughter for the survival of the first. You think of the girl who once ran from a man, from a promise. From the law, they caught her. No trial, no hearing, just a father's house, then a husband's hand. You wonder if the law is really a wall, or a mouth with no ears. In the twilight, your son returns from lessons with his tutor. He is 8, still muddy with boyhood. He recites verses from Solon, and laughs at the story of Draco's harsh codes. You smile at him, you press a kiss to his brow, but inside, a shadow trembles. Will he grow into a man who knows your silence was not weakness, or one who repeats the words carved by others without listening to the ones never spoken aloud? You pray that he listens. You pray that he sees you, not as a law's shadow, not as a possession, but as a person who once dreamed of justice with her own name written upon it. She is 12 when the blood comes. It arrives not as pain, but as a stain on her sleeping mat, small, brownish, like the bruised petal of a fallen flower. You find it in the early morning as you shake out her linens. She does not understand why your face changes, why your hands freeze mid-motion, why you do not speak for the length of 3 heartbeats. You kneel beside her, your voice hushed, hands suddenly gentle. You press your forehead to hers and whisper, "You are a woman now." The words catch in your throat, not out of joy, not pride, but grief, because you know what lies on the other side of that sentence. Her eyes are wide. Her mouth opens to ask something, but she does not speak. She senses it to the weight of something irreversible that night. You sit with her beneath the small fig tree in the courtyard. You braid her hair as your mother once braided yours, your fingers steady, your heart unraveling. You do not tell her everything. How could you? How do you explain that the blood is a door through which she must now pass, and that on the other side waits a world that has already drawn the lines of her path? You teach her how to fold the cloth, how to hide the stains, how to wash herself with rosemary and cool water. She listens carefully, mimicking your gestures, determined to be good. You hate how ready she is to learn. You watch her walk differently now. more aware of her arms, her hips, the eyes of others. The neighbor boy lingers longer in the alley when she fetches water. The steward calls her young lady instead of little one. Her innocence has not left her, not yet, but it is slipping like oil between fingers. Your husband says she must begin her dowry chest. He brings fabric, jewelry, coins sealed in small clay jars. He is proud. You nod. You always nod at night when the house is quiet. You touch the fabrics yourself, silk from the islands, purple-dyed wool, a comb made from horn. You imagine her using them, not as a girl at play, but as a bride, a vessel, a transaction. She still curls beside you in sleep, her hand wrapped around your wrist like when she was 5. But she does not know that time is running faster now, that every passing day is counted, not in lessons learned, but in marriageability accrued. One morning, she asks why she cannot run anymore. I don't feel different, she says. I still want to play. You look at her, those wide eyes, still full of sky. You say nothing. You pull her close and kiss her hair, and you weep in silence. You begin to teach her what you can. Not the stories told in public, but the secret truths. How to carry water without spilling. How to keep her voice low but not invisible. How to tell when a man's silence is peace and when it is threat. You try to show her strength without rebellion, resistance without punishment. But the tools are dull. The words are limited. The world you know offers so few blueprints for survival that does not also cost the soul. You begin to sew her wedding robes. The wool is soft, bleached in the sun, embroidered with delicate borders. Your needle trembles in your fingers. You tell yourself it is the lamp's smoke in your eyes, but you know better. You know what this sewing means. You remember your own wedding cloth, how you folded yourself into it like a shroud. You remember the scent of the torches, the music that sounded like morning, the bed that did not know your name. You watch your daughter grow into a woman's body. You see the strength in her shoulders, the kindness in her eyes, the quickness in her wit. You see her and know that the world will not truly. One evening, she finds a broken bird near the garden wall. She holds it tenderly, nursing it with drops of water, whispering to it as if her voice alone might heal. The bird dies before morning. She does not cry. She buries it in a clay pot and marks the grave with a single olive stone. You see the way she mourns quietly, respectfully, just as you have taught her, and your heart breaks, because, even in grief, she is already learning the shape of her silence. You sit beside her that afternoon, the garden heavy with bees, the air thick with heat. You want to tell her to run, to shout, to refuse, but your mouth cannot form the words. So instead, you place your hand over hers and say, "Your name is strong." Even if they never write it down, she nods. She always nods. The threshold awaits her, and you pray not to the gods of stone and thunder, but to the quiet spirits who live in bread ovens and hearth ash, that when she crosses it, she carries something of you that the world cannot burn away. She arrives just after midday, her shadow slipping past the courtyard gate like a breeze scented with foreign dust. You hear her voice first, not loud but certain, bartering over a bolt of indigo cloth with your husband. Her accent is odd, rounded with the sea, and her laughter rings out in a way that startles the sparrows from the fig tree. You are in the women's quarters, folding linens, when the steward informs you a merchant's widow from Corinth has come to settle accounts. That is all he says, that is all he's been told. But there's something in his eyes, a flicker of discomfort. curiosity. Even he, bound to the rhythms of propriety, has noticed she is not like the others. Your husband speaks with her for some time in the andron. You hear the scrape of amphory, the measured exchange of coin, the low cadence of negotiation. And then, unexpectedly, she steps into the courtyard. You are not meant to be seen. And yet, she sees you, a woman of perhaps 30 summers, dressed not in the crimson of mourning nor the pale cloth of purity, but in deep saffron dyed boldly, unapologetically. Her hair is uncovered, her arms sun-darkened. She carries herself like one who has forgotten to ask permission. She meets your eyes, she smiles, and she nods. No woman has done that in years. Later, your husband mutters that she is unconventional, that she walks the marketplace alone, owns 2 storage rooms in Piraeus, and speaks to men as though she were one of them. Widowhood has made her reckless, he says, but his tone is tinged with something else. Confusion, perhaps, or envy. The next morning, she returns. This time, she requests a private word with you. You prepare yourself as if for a festival, hair braided, veil drawn, hands perfumed. But when she enters the shaded women's room, she gestures for you to remove the veil. Please, she says, let us see each other plainly. You hesitate, and then you do. She speaks easily, as if the walls between you do not exist. She talks of trade routes and temple taxes, of the price of fig wine in summer and the best place to purchase saffron in Delos. She mentions the magistrates, by name, men you've only heard about in whispers. She speaks of them not with fear, but familiarity. You say little, you nod, but your eyes do not leave her face. She sees this, and gently she asks, do you ever think of leaving the house? Your breath catches. The idea is so distant, so strange, it almost sounds like a jest. Where would I go, you manage to say. She leans forward. Anywhere. There are women in Corinth who run shops, midwives who are paid in silver, not olives, priestesses who walk the sacred ways unaccompanied. Your heart pounds. Your fingers tremble in your lap. You look toward the doorway. No one is there. She touches your wrist. Her hand is warm, steady. You do not need to leave to remember you exist, she says. But you do need to see more than this ceiling. She stays only an hour. She leaves behind a small pouch of rose resin for your son's cough, and a scrap of parchment with a name written in careful hand. A woman's name, a healer, a friend, you. Do not tell your husband. You do not tell the steward. But you keep the parchment hidden in your basket of wool, tucked beneath the dull needles and the red thread you've never used. That night, when the house is quiet, you open the windows. In your chamber, you lean out farther than usual, letting the moonlight paint your face. You listen to the market sounds echoing from the lower hills. A flute, a cartwheel, a woman's voice shouting the price of garlic. It is not freedom, not yet, but it is a breath, a widening. You return to your son, sleeping with his arms flung wide. You kiss his brow and whisper a word you haven't said aloud in years. Hope, because today, a woman stepped through your wall, and for the first time, you imagined yourself stepping through one too. They whisper her name like a charm or a curse. Depending on who you ask, Aspasia, her syllables drip with scandal, intrigue, envy. The women of Athens lower their voices when they speak of her, and the men they raise theirs, either to praise or condemn. She is not of your world, and yet she lives in your mind as vividly as your own reflection. You hear of her first in fragments, a philosopher's companion, a foreigner, a woman who dares to speak in rooms meant for men. She is said to be the consort of Pericles, the great statesman, not a wife, not a slave, but something in between, something without a name in your tongue. They say she holds salons, where men come not just to look at her, but to listen, that even Socrates seeks her opinion, that her tongue is as sharp as her gaze, that she once corrected a magistrate in public, and was not stoned for it, that she lives unveiled, unveiled. You turn that word over in your mouth like a forbidden fruit. What does it feel like to walk into sunlight with your face uncovered, to let the wind touch your cheeks, to meet another's eyes and not lower yours? Your husband scoffs at the mention of her. A whore with clever lips, he says one evening, when her name is brought up during a meal. She will die, as all such women do, alone, and with no daughters to mourn her. But he says this with unease, as if Aspasia threatens not just order, but the illusion that order is just. You do not speak, but your mind returns to her, to the image of her standing in the center of a marble room, surrounded by thinkers and statesmen, unafraid to raise her voice. You picture her hands not softened by flour and water, but ink-stained, gesturing as she argues. She is not a wife, and still she is heard. It is said she was once charged with impiety for speaking ill of the gods, for corrupting the minds of men. You listen to the tale from the shadows of the courtyard, eyes wide. She stood trial, alone. No man defended her, not even Pericles, not in public, but still she did not bend. She spoke. She fought with words sharpened by solitude. She was acquitted. The priests grumbled. The city murmured. But she survived. You begin to dream of her. In your sleep, she walks, barefoot across the white steps of the Acropolis, her hair loose, her robe unbound. She looks at you and smiles, not kindly, but knowingly, as if to say, I chose this, and you could too. And then one day, the whispers change. She is dead, no funeral, no feast, no sacred procession. She fades, as women do, quietly, without ceremony. They say she died of fever, or heartbreak, or that the gods finally punished her for knowing too much. You go to the well that morning and find the sky strangely clear. The sun hangs low and pale. The olive leaves do not move. You feel her absence in a place you didn't know she had entered, in your ribcage, behind your breath. That night, you sit beside your daughter as she weaves. You tell her of Aspasia, carefully, not the way the men do, with mockery or fear, but with reverence. You speak of her mind, her bravery, her choice to live outside the rules. Your daughter listens, eyes fixed on yours. Was she bad? She asks. You shake your head. She was free. That word tastes strange and golden. You've never said it aloud before. You do not wish to be her. You do not wish for exile or public shame, but you wish fiercely that her name will be remembered, that when the statues crumble and the temples fall, some voice will whisper, there was once a woman who dared to speak. In the dark, your daughter reaches for your hand. She does not speak, but her grip is firm, and in that moment, Aspasia is not gone. She is there, in your silence, in your daughter's gaze, in the fire that burns low but steady beneath a lifetime of obedience. The shuttle clicks, back and forth, back and forth. The loom sings its familiar song, a rhythm older than war, older than law. You have sat before it every day for years, weaving the same patterns, borders of meanders, rows of olive branches, the sacred knots of marriage, they are not yours. They are the patterns taught to you by your mother, taught to her by hers, a lineage of obedience stitched in wool. But tonight, something shifts. The fire burns low. Your daughter sleeps in the corner, breath soft and steady. You are alone, and you are tired of silence. You run your fingers across the warp, feel its tension, stretched taut, like your life. You pick up the shuttle, you begin to weave, but not the patterns you've always known, not the careful, narrow designs of tradition. You begin with a curve, a wild, sweeping arc, not practical, not useful, but beautiful. You do not stop line after line, you change the rhythm. You weave in a bird, wings spread, mid-flight. You weave a spiral, a flower not found in any Athenian garden. Symbols with no name, shapes that no one taught you. You do not know what they mean, but they come from somewhere deeper than knowledge. The wool hums beneath your fingers. You add color threads you've saved, hidden from practical use. A deep maroon, a thread of lapis, gold so fine it catches the firelight. You are painting, not crafting, singing, not laboring. It feels like rebellion, quiet, soft, but real. The next morning, your daughter notices. She kneels beside the loom, her eyes wide. "What is it?" she asks. You hesitate. You consider brushing it off, a mistake, a dream. But instead, you say, "It's a story." She leans in. "What kind?" You touch the thread with your forefinger. "The kind that no one has told yet." She smiles, a slow, curious smile. She wants to try. You teach her, not the old patterns, not at first, but how to listen, not to the rules, but to the wool itself, to the rhythm of her breath, to the image that flickers behind her eyelids. When she closes them, she begins her own piece, crooked at first, a wave afoot, a sun with too many rays, but it is hers, entirely hers. That evening, the steward notices the cloth. He frowns. "This won't sell." You nod. "It isn't meant to." Your husband never asks. He does not see the loom as more than a source of dowries and cloaks. He doesn't see the messages woven into it. Not yet, but you do. Over time, the room fills with these strange new weavings, folded cloths that tell stories no lips dare speak. A moon dripping blood, a woman with wings instead of arms, a child walking through a doorway of fire. The slaves begin to whisper, not in fear, in wonder. One day, an old neighbor woman comes to visit. She sees the loom, the new cloth, the girl working beside you. She smiles, her eyes glisten. She does not say anything, but before she leaves, she presses your hand and says, "Keep weaving," and you will, because the loom, once a tool of silence, has become your voice. You stitch grief into its threads, joy, hunger, dreams. You stitch the memory of Aspasia, of Callista, of the midwife and the merchant's widow. You stitch your daughters' name into borders where no man will ever think to look. You cannot speak aloud in the assembly. You cannot write your name in law. But your cloth will outlast the men who never learned to read it. It will pass from hand to hand, used, worn, inherited, and even when its colors fade, even when no one remembers who made it, something of you will remain, a thread, a curve, a secret shape that refuses to vanish. It begins in the dark, 3 days of absence, sanctioned by the city, cloaked in mystery. You rise before the dawn, wrapping yourself in a plain, earth-colored cloak. No jewelry, no perfume, just salt on your skin and quiet purpose in your hands. You kiss your daughter's sleeping brow, leave water by the hearth, and step out into the grey of morning. You do not tell your husband where you are going. He does not ask. The thesmophoria belongs to women, one of the few spaces in this world that does. Men know not to interfere, or perhaps they simply do not care. You join the procession outside the city walls, where hundreds of women gather, veiled and barefoot. Some are young, their faces tight with anticipation. Others are ancient, their backs bent but their steps steady. You walk with them in silence, up the narrow path toward the sanctuary of Demeter. The fields glisten with dew. The crows circle above. A goat bleats in the distance. You carry offerings in a shallow basket: barley, pomegranates, dried fish, cakes shaped like serpents. It is the first time in years that you have left the house without a man beside you. The road stretches wide. The air tastes different, like something new or something forgotten. When you arrive, the gates are closed behind you. No men may enter. No boys, no slaves, no questions. Only women. You find a place among them, under a fig tree near the outer altar. The priestess begins the rites. She speaks not with grandeur, but with gravity. You do not need spectacle. This is not for show. This is for soil, for birth, for the dead and the yet-to-be. For the first day, you fast. The hunger sharpens you. It strips away the outer self, the wife, the mother, the servant of duty, and leaves you bare. You do not cook. You do not clean. You sit and remember who you are beneath all that labor. The other women share stories. Not loudly, not as men do, but in soft murmurs around the fire pit. You hear laughter, real laughter, the kind that spills from the belly. You have not heard that sound in your own throat for so long it feels like another language. On the second day, the sacrifices are lowered into the pits: piglets, rotted grain, sacred cakes. They are buried to ferment, to become holy, to feed the goddess beneath. You watch as they vanish into the earth. You think of your own buried parts, your voice, your name, your hunger for more. You want them to rise. Like the offerings will rise next spring. You bathe in river water. You smear your arms with ash and clay. You sing songs too old for translation. You do not look over your shoulder. You do not fear your own voice. On the final day, you gather the sacred remains. The pit is opened. The smell is strong decay. Rebirth, life transformed. The priestess handles them with reverence, mixing them into the seeds to be sown in autumn. Life must pass through death to be fertile again. You feel the truth of that in your bones. You think of the girl you were hidden behind the lattice, silent in your father's house. You think of the woman you've become, bent but not broken, bound but still burning. That night, you lie on the cool earth beneath the open sky. There are no walls here, no ceilings, just stars, and the soft breathing of women who remember themselves. Someone begins a chant, not a hymn, not a prayer, but a lullaby. You know the words, you join in, so do dozens of others. A single melody rising into the dark. Like smoke, you do not need a name to be whole. You do not need permission to be sacred. You close your eyes, and for the first time in memory, you sleep. Without fear, he dies, without ceremony. No divine thunder, no grand farewell. Just a cough that deepens, a fever that clings, and breath that slips quietly from his body while the oil lamp still burns beside him. You sit by his bed as he stiffens, your hands folded in your lap, watching the embers die in the brazier. The room smells of vinegar, sweat, and myrrh. It smells like endings. The household stirs with the news, as if a rope has been cut. The steward informs the neighbors. The women cover the mirrors. Slaves bring water for cleansing. His body is washed and wrapped. Coins pressed beneath the tongue. You do not cry, not because there is no grief, but because there is no room for it. Not yet. You move through the rituals like a shadow, lead the wailing at the foot of the bier. Scatter barley on the threshold, press the seal onto the door to ward off restless spirits. You are the widow now. Your place has changed, though. The stone beneath your feet has not. The mourning robe is heavy, dyed black with pitch, coarse against your skin. It makes your shoulders ache. It makes your presence known. Women do not often become visible, but widows are. You are now a reminder, a caution, a symbol. The visitors arrive with food and condolences. They speak in soft tones. They look at you with pity or suspicion. Some whisper that you are fortunate. Others wonder what will become of you. You wonder too. You walk the halls of the house and feel a strange unfamiliarity, as if the rooms have reshaped themselves in his absence. His cloak still hangs by the door. His sandals lie untouched. His absence is louder than his presence ever was. And with that absence comes something else. Space. You can breathe now, not because the air is different, but because the weight is no longer must you rise at his command. Answer to his moods, tailor your silence to the contours of his comfort. There is no man to obey, no law to lean behind, no voice to drown your own, but freedom too has its thorns. You are not young enough to be remarried without resistance, nor old enough to be dismissed entirely. You are watched, not as a woman, but as a potential disruption. A free woman is a dangerous one, even if she has nowhere to go. Your son, nearly grown, now speaks with the voice of his father, not cruelly, but with the confidence of one who knows the law bends for him. He tells you the steward will manage the household, that he will oversee the grain accounts, that your role now is to rest. You nod. You always nod, but at night, when the doors are shut and the lamps burn low, you unlock the chest beneath your bed. Inside are the weavings, the strange, wordless stories stitched in red and blue and gold. You lay them out across the floor. You remember each pattern, each hour spent, each thread pulled in silence. You are not alone. Widows begin to visit. Slowly, quietly, a friend from childhood, a neighbor's cousin, a woman who once wept in the market with no one to hear her. They come bearing oil, figs, thread. They stay for tea. They stay for stories. They speak not of loss, but of breath, of how the air feels different now, of how the world still shrinks, but not as tightly, of how their names have not changed, even though their lives have. You learn to walk alone, again to the well, to the baker, even to the temple gate. You are no longer veiled in youth or silence. You walk as one who has nothing to prove, and everything to remember. In the cool evenings, you sit with your daughter, now a wife herself, her child swaddled at her breast. She asks if you loved him. You pause, then say, "He gave me you." She nods. She understands. You are a widow, not broken, not free, but changed. And in that change, there is room to breathe. She appears in the doorway one crisp morning, the sky above streaked with the pale threads of autumn. A girl no older than 14, clutching a bundle of firewood in one arm and a folded cloth beneath the other. Her tunic is worn but clean, her sandals mended by a careful hand. There is nothing extraordinary about her at first glance, until you meet her eyes. They are alight with something wild and weightless, a curiosity you have not seen in decades. She introduces herself with a soft voice and a firm chin. Her father is a philosopher, she says, one of the quiet ones, not a speaker in the square, but a writer of thoughts no one else dares write. He needs herbs for his joints. She has come to fetch them herself. You invite her in. She glances around your courtyard with interest, not politeness. She notes the patterns of the tiles, the shape of the olive trees, the woven cloth drying on the line. She asks if you made it. You nod. She smiles. You use the meander in reverse. That's rare. You blink. No one has ever noticed. You bring her mint and thyme wrapped in cloth. She lingers. She asks questions about weaving, about plants, about the gods. You answer, at first simply, then more openly. She listens, not as a child, but as someone gathering pieces of the world. She returns the next week, and the week after. You begin to expect her. One day, she brings a scroll hidden beneath her cloak. She shows it to you in the shade of the fig tree, words written in careful, slanted ink, lines from Plato, a dialogue on justice. I'm not supposed to have it, she says with a grin. My father says girls shouldn't fill their heads with such things. You do not laugh. You look at her, the hunger in her, the fire. You recognize it. It once burned in you, before it was smothered with duties and dowries and childbirth. You ask her to read it aloud. She does. The words are strange, heavy, beautiful. She stumbles on some, pauses, looks up, explains. You follow as best you can. It is not easy, but it is familiar. Like finding a song you forgot you once knew. She begins to visit more often, not just for herbs now, but for stories, for questions, for silence. She asks why women do not teach, why they do not write, why their names vanish from history. You tell her the truth, because no one wants to remember them. She frowns. Then I'll remember them. She begins writing names in a small book, names of midwives, of weavers, of priestesses, of women whose stories were nearly lost. You add to her list. Slowly, carefully, she writes your name. One morning she arrives breathless. Her father has forbidden her from coming. He found the scroll, she says. He burned it. She looks at you, face flushed, fists clenched. But I memorized it. You smile. You place a blank cloth before her and hand her your finest needle. Then write with this. Together you begin a new weaving. Not one of household order or marital duty or ceremonial pattern, but of words, of hidden verses, of silent prayers, of names. You stitch your knowledge into the thread. She stitches hers. The cloth grows longer, stranger, more beautiful. It does not follow the rules. One afternoon, your son sees it. He says nothing, but later, you notice him looking at the weaving with an unfamiliar expression. Not disapproval, not fear, but awe. The girl grows. Her visits become rarer, but each time she returns, she carries more knowledge, more daring. She teaches now quietly, in hidden spaces, to girls who ask too many questions. She never marries. She never quiets. Years later, you hear of a woman in Corinth who teaches logic to sailors' daughters. Her name is familiar. You smile, and you know the fire was not extinguished. It leaped. You walk slowly through the colonnade, your sandals brushing softly over the marble, worn smooth by centuries of feet. The light here is filtered through high arches, casting long shadows that stretch like memories across the stone. This is the temple quarter, a place where history breathes through carved granite and the still eyes of gods who never sleep. You've come alone. Your son offered to accompany you, but you declined. You wanted this silence, this walk, this reckoning. The statues stand in orderly rows, tall and immaculate. The faces are calm, symmetrical, the poses ideal. You pass warriors locked in eternal combat, philosophers draped in cascading robes, men whose names are etched deep into their pedestals, honored, remembered, carved in permanence. You stop before a figure with a chisel-smooth beard, holding a scroll. Beneath his sandaled feet, the inscription proclaims, Umans, teacher of rhetoric. You read the name aloud, just once. The sound is foreign on your tongue. You move on, another man, then another. Names, achievements, triumphs. Then a woman. She stands near the corner, small in stature, hands clasped at her waist. Her eyes are cast downward, her mouth expressionless. She wears a simple peplus, no adornments, no weapon, no book. The base of her statue is blank, no inscription, no date, no name. You stare at her a long time. She is you, not in face or form, but in what she lacks. You think of how many women have lived and died without a trace. How many labored behind curtains, behind men, behind silence. How many mothers, midwives, sisters, slaves, unnamed, unmarked, UNREMEMBERED. Your own mother, her mother before her. You try to imagine their faces. You cannot. You only remember their hands folding cloths, stirring pots, wiping tears from cheeks they were never allowed to paint with color. You reach out and touch the cold marble of the unnamed woman. For a moment, your skin against hers is the only warmth in this gallery of ghosts. You whisper a name, not your own, one you made up, one that sounds like freedom. You step back and look at her again. Still, she says nothing. Still, she watches the floor, but something inside you shifts. You walk past more statues. They blend together now, all the laurels, the scrolls, the stone lips parted mid-oration. None of them speak to you, not really. But as you pass through the final arch, you find one more, cracked, weathered, barely standing. A woman again. This one missing her nose, her left hand gone. But she is not bowed. She stands upright, her robes twisted in a wind that never stops. At her feet, faint and nearly illegible, unknown mother of the city. You stop, you kneel, you press your hand too. The inscription, you do not need more, because you understand what it means to carry the weight of generations in silence. To build cities not of stone, but of breath, of blood, of bread baked before dawn. And you know that for every statue without a name, there are 1,000 women who breathed meaning into history, even if it never wrote them down. You leave the temple quietly, but something follows you. Not grief, not pride, recognition. The baby arrives on a rainless spring night, when the scent of almond blossoms clings to the shutters and the stars tremble above like silver coins dropped into an invisible basin. Your daughter labors in the same birthing room where you once cried into the midwife's shoulder. Now it is your hand she clutches, fingers strong, knuckles pale, eyes sharp with the thunderous ache of creation. You sit behind her, steady as stone, whispering prayers not to Artemis or Hera, but to the women who came before. To the unnamed, to the unseen dot when the child emerges, red and wet and wailing. You press a cloth to her back and feel her lungs fill with the breath of the living. A girl, a girl. And still the world does not end. The midwife smiles. Your daughter weeps. And you laugh, though the sound startles even you. Later, after the room is cleared and the oil lamps flicker low, your daughter rests in the quiet. The infant lies curled against her chest like a sleeping animal, still smelling of iron and milk. You brush a strand of hair from her temple and whisper, "What will you call her?" She answers without hesitation, "Your name." You blink. The silence wraps around your ears. You have not heard your name spoken like that, as a beginning, not a memory, in decades. It feels like soft rain on sun-scorched soil. Your name, you try it again in your mind, rolling it like a bead between your palms. It fits differently. Now it feels alive. She says it once more to the baby, gently, with reverence. This is your grandmother's name. You come from her hands. You look at the child, her fingers curled, her mouth seeking warmth, even in sleep, and feel something open in you. Not pride, not legacy, something deeper. A thread being pulled through time, invisible but unbroken. In the following days, the name is spoken often. The neighbors hear it. The slaves murmur it with smiles. Your husband's name has already begun to fade from conversation, as all men's names do when their work is finished. But yours has been reborn. You begin to sow again, but not for dowries, for the child. You stitch her name into a swaddling cloth, not visible, not loud, but there, in white thread on white wool, hidden like strength. You hum lullabies you thought you'd forgotten. You teach your daughter how to soothe. Colic with fennel tea, how to warm water just enough, how to wrap a baby so she feels safe without being bound. And in quiet moments, when the infant lies across your knees, wide-eyed and unblinking, you tell her stories, not of heroes, not of gods, but of women. Women who healed, who ran, who hid, who survived. You tell her of Aspasia, of the merchant, widow of the midwife's herbs, of the girl who stitched birds into the edge of her wedding robe. You tell her about the loom, and the silence, and the name she now carries. Your daughter watches you. She know who you are, she says. You shake your head. She know who she is. That's what matters. You hold the child to your chest. She is warm, wriggling, alive, and for the first time, your name is not a burden, it is a gift. You sit alone in the women's quarters, the late afternoon sun casting long, drowsy patterns across the floor. Dust floats in the golden air, drifting lazily like forgotten memories. The loom stands silent. The hearth is cold. Your granddaughter sleeps in the crook of your arm, her breath warm against your wrist. Around you, the house listens. You have lived here for most of your life, first as a stranger, then a wife, then a mother, then a widow. The walls know the shape of your footsteps, the sound of your voice in prayer, the songs you hummed to drown the ache. You wonder, now, if they remember more than you do. If the stones could speak, what would they say? Perhaps they would tell of the night your daughter first coughed blood and you sat beside her, holding her until the fever passed, or the morning your husband left for war and didn't look back, or the silent afternoons when you wept into the olive press, where no one could hear you over the grind of the stone. Perhaps they remember every lullaby, every whispered argument, every burst of laughter that slipped past the rules you walk through, the house now like one visiting a museum built from her own breath. Each room holds ghosts, not of the dead, but of the living, the forgotten. The girl you were, pressing your face to the lattice, the young bride clutching her wedding cloth, the mother bending over a cradle, the weaver losing herself in the rhythm of the thread. None of them are gone. They wait, folded into corners, stitched into cushions, burned into the grain of the doors. You pause at the threshold of the andron, the men's room. Even now, even after all these years, you hesitate before stepping in. You remember the low voices, the scent of wine and smoke, the flash of laughter too loud for the walls. You never belonged here. Still don't. But the room is empty now. Quiet. You step inside. The floor is worn smooth. A wine stain lingers in one corner. You touch the wall, feel its cool, ancient stillness. So much of your life was spent outside this room, but you do not feel bitterness, only a quiet knowing. You speak aloud softly, your name just once. The echo is faint, but it's there. You walk to the outer courtyard, where the fig tree still grows. Its branches heavier now, drooping with the weight of late fruit. You remember your granddaughter reaching for them, laughing with her mouth wide and joyful. That sound will live here. To dot you, press your hand to the stone bench. It is warm. You close your eyes, and you wonder, if some distant girl were to sit here 100 years from now, would she feel your presence? Would she hear the quiet strength in the wind through the lattice? Would she sense the prayers layered into the brick, the sorrow swept into the corners, the songs that rose only when the world was sleeping? Would she know that women lived here? Would she know that they mattered? You look to the far wall, where your daughter once painted a tiny bird in ochre just beneath the roof's edge. You never told her to stop. You never wiped it away. It remains bright, defiant, unnoticed by most, but not by you. The walls do not speak, but they remember, and in their stillness, they carry every name that history has tried to erase. Night has deepened across the city. The marble gleams cold beneath the stars, and the air carries the hush of things finished. You lie on your side in the women's room, once your prison, then your refuge, now simply a space filled with memory. The clay lamp beside your bed flickers gently, casting shadows that stretch and curl like the threads of an old story winding to its final verse. Your hands rest atop the cloth that has covered you through every season of your life, woven by your mother, stitched again by your own hands, patched and mended through birth and death, silence and song. Beneath your fingers, the patterns whisper, spirals, knots, crooked birds in flight. Your breath comes slow now, not from illness, from age, the kind of age that carries neither regret nor pride, but a quiet reckoning. You hear the soft clatter of a spindle in the next room. Your granddaughter is weaving, not for duty, but for joy. You smile, eyes closed. For years, you were a name no one remembered, a shadow behind the lattice, a voice hushed by the laws of men and the gods of thunder. You bore children, baked bread, bled monthly into cloths that were burned without ceremony. You kept a house upright with hands no one praised, and yet, here, you are alive in the breath of your descendants, alive in the calloused fingertips of the girl who now weaves where you once sat, alive in the prayers uttered in the festival nights of Thesmophoria, where women still gather and mourn and laugh. In the language of the unsilenced, your echo remains, not loud, but enduring, not carved in stone, but pressed into the memory of walls and worn floors, and daughters who remember the names that once were almost lost. The flame of the lamp gutters, once, twice. You do not stir. You feel warmth in your chest. Not fire, but something older, like embers that glow long after the wood is gone. You think of all the women before you, the mother who did not speak, the friend who stitched stars into cloth, the widow who walked alone to the temple. They are with you now. Their silences have become songs. Their names, even the ones no one ever wrote, have been carried forward by hands that refuse to forget. You are not alone, you never were, and as your breath grows shallow, as the last curl of light trembles and fades, you know this. You were not erased. You were transformed, from silence to story, from shadow to thread, from echo to flame dot, and now the night can rest as the last flame fades from this life of thread and silence. I thank you for walking its quiet path with me. If the echo of her story moved your heart, subscribe and return, for there are many forgotten lives yet to unfold. Tell me what name, what thread, what silence will you remember? As the lamp's final glow fades into night, may the story of her silence linger gently in your thoughts. If this journey moved you, subscribe and return. When your soul is ready for another forgotten voice in the dark, what part of her story stayed with you the most? Could you have endured a life lived behind the lattice? Do you believe a name can echo even when no one speaks it aloud?